Hello and welcome to The Curators, a podcast about game projects on Kickstarter. I'm Joey.
And I'm Marcello. You can find all the games from this episode as well as plenty of others at our curated page at kickstarter.com/gamerati.
You can also find links to each of these projects in the show notes of this episode at thecurators.gamerati.com. If you're a backer of any of these projects, we'd love to hear from you. You can email us at thecurators@gamerati.com and tell us why you're backing a certain project, and we may feature your email on the podcast.
I think we start this time, right, Joey?
I have two, you have one, and we actually go alternating, believe it or not.
Haha. And it's all RPGs today.
It is. No, it is actually because, and which is kind of odd for me. I don't generally bring up a ton of RPG stuff, but and now we're 100% RPGs today. I'm starting with Fantasy Grounds Unity. Have you ever used Fantasy Grounds?
Yes, I have. Yeah, I used to play with a guy who had all the licenses. We played for free with him. Like he bought all the licenses for him and 5 players, I believe. Yeah.
I think you can get a basic like DM style, or GM, I should say, because they don't do just Dungeons and Dragons, but you can get a big account that's basically a hosting account, and then other players can even have just free accounts, I think, that can come in on the back end.
Yeah, I think that's it. We used to play Ars Magica. Is that it? Is that how you call it? Ars Magica?
I mean, I know what you're talking about. I don't know if that's how that's pronounced, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, we just had to log into a free version, and he had all the perks.
So Unity is a different version of Fantasy Grounds. Unity is you would actually probably recognize Unity a lot if you're a mobile gamer. You may also notice it in a handful of indie games, I guess you could say, like video games. It's an engine that works like old school. It was Quake or something.
Unreal
Engine was for Quake, but yeah, it started out as a Quake engine. Then Unreal was like the big one, and now Unity is becoming a bigger engine that is just easier to use. I know a lot of console games are using Unity for their like indie dev stuff. I just downloaded one that's like a little party game where you're a bunch of chefs. It's called Overcooked, and it uses Unity, and it's really interesting how a very in-depth video game can be used with this engine, and something such as Fantasy Grounds can also be used in Unity because it's a really complex, very mathy program that does a lot of it for you, but it still has all these different rules and sets, but it has to be open for you to homebrew and stuff. It's crazy. The concept that we're actually looking at, for those that have never used or even heard of Fantasy Grounds, I'm acting like everybody knows what I'm talking about. Fantasy Grounds is a virtual tabletop, but they have a whole bunch of D&D stuff. They have classic D&D stuff. They have Pathfinder. They have Starfinder. They have Castles and Crusades, Savage Worlds, Chaosium's Call of Cthulhu Essentials. There's a whole bunch of different systems you can use. I know that they used to use 4th edition D&D. You used to be able to do 13th Age, I believe, which is a really great RPG as well. In this scenario, it's not necessarily flavored for those that want to use it as a embedded TV in like their tabletop gaming table. You can, but I feel like the whole starting point is that we're playing an RPG online and we're in different countries or whatever. Like you and I could use Fantasy Grounds to do an RPG. I would actually ask our listeners, what's your favorite virtual tabletop? Because I know that Roll20 is really popular right now because of how it functions. That one almost seems to have an attitude that's geared more towards in-home use, where you still have your friends playing around the table, but you're managing a lot of systems in Roll20 and you're projecting the map onto a table. And you still have things like a chat log, so you can talk in and out of character for those of us that do need to play it over large distances. I feel like Fantasy Grounds comes from the other perspective, and I really like that perspective personally because I really do enjoy playing an RPG online, just as long as you like include some sort of video aspect so I can see my players. I prefer doing something like that. So how is old school Fantasy Grounds different from the new one? The new one is going to allow 64-bit support. So previously the other one was pretty old. It had 32-bit support. So it would work in native Windows, it would work just fine. It just didn't have the depth for quality content. And now we can actually have a lot more content too. So this is what they're saying on the website.
Yeah, and with 64-bit support, it's gonna work on iMacs forever now because 32-bit is getting the boot.
That's the next button on here is native support for Mac and Linux, which is nice. It always had Windows PC support. The next little bit is also interesting. It's the network lobby for easy hosting and joining games. No port forwarding required. In previous editions, you did have that host. He had to set up port forwarding on his router, which was like, it was somewhere in the 3800s or something. It was a crazy high port number. You had to go into your system and set up that port forwarding. And if you had any sort of DNS issues with your local versus your network IP address, then you had to reorient that. It happened nearly every single month, at least, that you had to kind of rejigger to get everybody in. You had to give people your IP address, which was frustrating and annoying. You had to generally set up some sort of password so that in case you were like streaming this, you didn't accidentally give out your IP address. A network lobby for easy hosting and joining of games is so nice. Unbelievably nice. The next little button on here says tile-based map building. Now, I'm not 100% certain on how this is going to be functioning here, but you can. There's a little video right here to kind of break it down for you. What I'm understanding is that you would build each tile out based on tile graphics that you have, similarly to how you would build a map in like a board game out of tile laying. You would build this in Fantasy Grounds Unity because previously I think the only way you could actively do this would be to make it essentially just be a graphic that has a grid on top of it. So you would, up until this point, you would have a graphic that just had a grid just overlaid onto it, and your tokens would like snap to that grid. But if you had buildings in that graphic that had to adhere to a specific grid size, it might not always line up. It was a little bit more fudgy and a little more not always there because not everybody was building stuff directly for Fantasy Grounds. So having tile-based map building is pretty cool. You get enhanced drawing tools, additional dice macro support, which is nice. The dice are really fun. Actually, one of the big reasons I like Fantasy Grounds overall is because you have dynamic animated dice rolling, which I thought was a lot of fun. You grab, your 8 dice 6 for a fireball, and you basically just click on the dice 6 that's down in your right there for our YouTubers. It's down in the like little dice set that you have, and then when you're holding it, you right click to add more dice to it, and then you just chuck them into the chat bar, and people get to see it. People get to see you throw your dice, and you actually throw dice. Like, that's so cool. I love that. And in this, you get additional dice macro support. So if you have your ranger who has a +2 poison bow, so you might want a macro over there that is your die 8 for the bow, your die 6 for the poison, and your die 6 for hunter's mark that you may want to have in a macro. So you're not just trying to grab a bunch of different dice and see what your damage is and do a ton of math. You can build macros for that stuff. There's a dynamic line of sight with enhanced toggle blockers.
That's also called Fog of War, right?
Yes. And I'm actually going to scroll down to that for our YouTubers. There is a nice video on how to draw a line of sight and how to make sure that your players only see what you want them to see. There's 2 ways you can actually do stuff. You can draw red lines around walls. You just draw them onto your map. And when your players move their tokens, they will draw a line of sight in a specific radius that you set for them. So if you say it's low light, they only have a smaller radius than normal. They will only draw a line of sight out to where they can physically see on the map. The rest of it will look black. And you're drawing walls so that their light source doesn't go past it. But there's other things there too where you'll see if you draw a green line in a little area, let's say it's brush, you can draw a green line in that area and people will see the terrain, but not the stuff in it. Or anything beyond it, I believe, is what's going on. So if you've got tokens in there, you'll know where they are, and you'll know monsters are in there. But they won't be revealed until you tell them to be revealed. So if people try to walk into the brush and they can't see what they're walking into, boom, gelatinous cube. This will be that's a really cool way to do some of the dynamic line of sight and fog of war stuff that I really, really think is amazing. There's a couple of extra things that I think are great. You're getting extra DLC stuff. You're getting backwards compatibility. You're getting animated image effects, which is amazing. You'd have to go and take a look at those to actually see what they do. I believe there is a video for them somewhere on here. But anyways, this whole project I already like because I already like Fantasy Grounds. And they even have some information for those of us who already have a Fantasy Grounds account, how they can upgrade to the Unity version while maintaining their old account. Maybe they don't have to. I believe when they upgrade, it's much cheaper than getting a whole new set, or you get like just $5 off. But ultimately, there's a bunch of different tiers here that'll help you get a bunch of different things. And it starts off at just simply $15 will get you a standard license for FGU. I want to say this will allow you to like download stuff and get asset packs. Or no, I know what it does. I've done this before, now I remember. It will allow you to host a game for other standard licenses. So if everybody wants to pitch in $15, you can all play. Then there's the veteran upgrade and rookie upgrade. These are upgrades from previous versions, I believe. So if you already have an old one, you can upgrade. The next setup I want to say is the newcomer standard, which I think just gets you basic access to the beta in this case. Oh, another cool element of Fantasy Grounds that I'm realizing as I'm reading it is all this stuff is available on Steam as well, which is a really easy, helpful place to start purchasing stuff from. You're already used to it. It's just really nice. The ultimate is $100, and I believe with $100 you can get everybody to just come on in to your game. So you get all of the unlocked asset packs, you get everything, and so does all your players when they come in. You get whatever you need. That actually is the standard to ultimate upgrade is $100. I want to say the newcomers of $135. Clearly, I'm just over the moon for this Kickstarter, and I'm having a hard time even reading the pledge levels. You got to dive into them, ask the questions. All the facts are there to help you get the pledge that you want to get. Everything's digital, so you're not looking at any sort of actual shipping costs or anything like that until, of course, you scroll down to the very bottom and just got to have one of those t-shirts. Otherwise, everything's pretty simple here. Fantasy Grounds Unity, it has $259,000 out of the $29,000 it asked for, with 20 days to go at the time of recording. So, yeah. What do you have for us?
I'm going to talk about something I don't usually talk, which is a D&D. It's a game that it isn't D&D, but it's a third-party game that uses the basic Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition mechanic. It's called Spaceships and Starworm. So instead of D&D, you have S&S. It's a sci-fi setting for the 5e rules. It's by Hope Punk.
I would like to interject and say you do too bring up D&D compatible games every once in a while. And when it comes to RPGs, you almost exclusively bring up sci-fi games. So I'm calling you out on that.
I was caught red-handed. Okay, so let's be honest here. Sci-fi versions of D&D are a dime a dozen. This one caught my eye because of the design. The writer, Audrey Stosey, she is a graphic designer, podcaster, and gamer. I think this shines because it's a very competent book. The art is great by a diverse set of artists. The book seems nice when it publishes, but I would get the PDF if I played 5th edition. So yeah, this game has a lot of inspirations. Everything under the sun is inspired by Star Wars and Star Trek, by Buck Rogers and Babylon 5. You have scoundrels, spaceship battles, you have mystics, you have psychic powers, all with very competent art and amazing design. Look at these pages. If you're listening to the podcast, click on the link on our show notes and take a look at the sample pages. There's a very cool space creature here. Where is it? Oh, here. It's a derelict dweller. It lives on derelict ships. The design reminds me of a D&D 4th edition sci-fi setting that I used to run a lot, which was Amethyst from Chris Diaz, published through his Diaz Ex Machina. I played the hell out of that game. And this reminds me a lot of that. So it brings me fond memories of olden days. So you have the basic game. The basic game comes with 13 playable species, 5 classes exclusive for the scenario, the Marshal, the Scion, the Oracle, the Roboticist, and the Scientist. 2 augmented classes, archetypes for bards, fighters, rogues, paladins, and sorcerers. I mean, archetypes that you can use to fit them into the game. Backgrounds, equipment, a whole chapter on spaceships and spaceship combat, which is always a plus. Hacking rules, cover rules specific for sci-fi. Environmental rules for zero gravity. And of course, monsters, robots, space creatures, creatures from another realm, and a setting. The book will describe a complete setting for you to play on. So it's a galactic primer on natural environments. So it's a description of more than 200 pages of like sci-fi environments based on nature. More than 100 monsters, equipment, spells, details on poisons and drugs, and different environments you can use to just throw your players at. We could couple that with Fantasy Grounds Unity that you just talked about. It will also come with an adventure called Nature's Past, and they are almost at the next pledge level, which is they unlocked a new species, they unlocked natural environments book, they unlocked posters, digital wallpapers, and they are almost unlocking the spell cards. I love playing games that has cards for powers or spells or psionic powers, etc., etc. They needed $7,000. They are more than twice that, almost $15,000, a little more, and then 21 days to go, so a little more. They have to start inventing new stretch goals. You can get the PDF with everything that's going to be released for only $20, which is usually my choice. Or there's a pledge level for $35, for $60. There's a bunch of stuff here for $80, $90, $120. You get a print version of everything. Yeah, so that's my recommendation. If there is one sci-fi setting that uses D&D 5th edition, that if I played D&D 5th edition, that would be it. That would be the one. I loved it. Designed by Audrey Stosey. She says she's a podcaster. I need to find out which podcast she does. I want to hear it. From Maryland Heights, MO. What is MO? Missouri?
Being someone who's in the United States and is a logistics shipper, you'd think I'd know. It's Missouri.
Okay.
We have a lot of M states. Sorry. There's just a lot.
So your next project, could we use it? Could we put all our 3 projects into one table and play with them?
Maybe. I mean, if you're looking for glow-in-the-dark cybernetic dice. Yeah. Because I'm checking out the Dice Charger by Q Workshop. So, do you know what the worst part about glow-in-the-dark dice is?
I think I know what you're going to say.
You never play in the dark.
Yes.
I don't want dice that their biggest bonus is that they're hard to read. Like, come on, right? And so when I ran into this, I'm like, this is perfect. This is what I needed. Because with the Dice Charger by Q Workshop, you have a little, I want to say it's plastic cup with leather on the outside, and a black light, actually 3, let me scroll down to it so I can show the viewers, 3 black light LEDs in the lid. There it is. Easy to change batteries, UV LED lights, motion detector turns the lights on. So when you put your glow-in-the-dark dice in the cup, you put the lid on the cup, you shake it up a little bit, and then you pour them out, and you've got glow-in-the-dark dice that are glowing in the light. Because if you really want to shine a black light LED onto a glow-in-the-dark substance, whether it's a dice or anything that is glow-in-the-dark material, and then you pour it onto the table, they will glow. They will glow in their ambient light. And if they are strong enough, if they have enough charge in them, they'll glow for some time, even in the daytime. And furthermore, this Kickstarter is offering metal dice. And they are so cool. They are their very first glow-in-the-dark metal dice that they have. So you get these like silvery dice with white I don't know if they're actually like pressed or if they're machined. They're like hand machined, but I want to say they're recessed either way to hold the ink inside. And then you've got this glow in the dark ink in there so that when you put them in your cup and they glow, you roll them on the table, there is glowing dice in your hand in the daytime. And they're easy to read. This is so cool to me. This, you can get multiple colors. You get the basic green, you can get orange, you can get blue, you can even get the classic digital dice set, which is also metal. That's very limited edition, so they're only going to do 200 of those. But there's edging on each of the dice that are also glow in the dark, and you have to go to the Kickstarter to see them. Honestly, it's hard for me to explain what the edging means. It's like a beveled edge around every single edge, and so even the D20 has just a ton of these little beveled edges. Like the die 4 doesn't have very strong edges. Like you could, because it's beveled like this, you could actually stand it on its edge, on one of the edges of the die 4 triangle or pyramid or whatever we want to call that. And those edges are also glow in the dark. And in the images on the website, the one that I'm looking at right now, there's green lettering with blue edges, and it's so cool looking. And you have a little holder that charges your dice. That's the coolest thing. So yes, we are talking about nothing but RPGs, and it turns out they're pretty much all sci-fi stuff. Even the cup has really cool sci-fi looking embossings on it, and there's little holes in it too, so you can kind of see when the light is on, so you don't have to shake it and hope that the light turned on. You're not covering up the whole cup, so you can tell that the light's on, that it's charging your dice. I think this is amazing. There's really nothing else to say about it. You're going to take a look at it, and if it's in your price range, you're going to back it. The very basic set is $29 for just a dice set that is glow in the dark. It's very expensive for just a dice set, but it is a glow in the dark dice set. It is $59 for the charger and one of the sets. So your dice cup that is, I want to say it's basically plastic wrapped in leather. It will have the LEDs and all that stuff in it, and it comes with a glow in the dark dice set for $59. If you want to up it to $79, which is actually not that much of an upgrade as monetarily, but it will change it to metal dice, which is pretty legit. I think that's the best move. But if you can also go up to that really premium one that I mentioned that have the beveled edges with the glow in the dark in the edges for $149. So $149 for all of that. So none of this is cheap, but it is the first time that I've seen usable glow in the dark dice, and I think it's amazing. I super want to get some. I have so many dice cups and holders and trays and metal dice and craziness, and my wife would murder me if she saw me bring more unnecessary dice sets into the house, so I'll just have to hide them.
And I love the name too. It's a dice charger.
Yeah, it charges up your dice like they're powered. You can also get some other cool stuff here. You can get a reflective dice bag that's really kind of pretty looking for only $9. You can get a really cool looking play mat for $15. There's a dice tower that also has glow in the dark stuff to it, which is really cool because you can actually set the cup lid aside and have it point at the dice tower to like make it glow kind of in the daytime, you know. Of course, if you leave it out in the sun in the middle of the day and then bring it in, you can probably still see it glow if you just wanted to glow naturally, which is pretty cool too. They just have their, natural add-on stuff that's a lot of fun, and everything here looks great. You can also personalize your dice set if you'd like, choose between certain designs, certain materials, whether you want a specific color on certain dice or a specific paint color on the dice, and whichever one you are looking to get. There's other ones that they're going to be unlocking here, like a pink glow-in-the-dark plastic and blue glow-in-the-dark plastic, which should be pretty cool too. So those are just awesome. I'm going to scroll all the way down past their prototyping, past their fulfillment schedule, and see what we've got for shipping. Because most of the time, this kind of stuff is really cheap. Shipping rates...
It's free for Poland.
That must be where it's being produced. That's pretty cool. And then that makes EU and USA nearly the same. That's largely because they're already in the EU, so they don't have to charge for VAT when they're building it. I mean, they do, but it's already kind of integrated into the whole thing. But shipping things like dice into the US, that's under a specific tariff that is exempt mostly from duties to import into the US. That's really affordable and super cool. And you're already spending $150 for the top tier. What's another $7? That's nothing. So if you're the type of person like I am that wants to see glow in the dark dice be a viable thing, at your tabletop, then even the $80 mark is really, really affordable.
So let's end on a glowing remark.
Anyway, that's it for another episode of the show. If you have any questions about the games we featured, or if you'd like us to consider a game on the podcast, feel free to email us at thecurators@gamerati.com, and we will answer you on the podcast.
You can also reach Joey and myself on Twitter or Facebook at Gamerati. The show notes for this episode and all our episodes are at thecurators.gamerati.com, where you can also find The Curators on iTunes, on Google Podcasts, on Stitcher, and Spotify.
And don't forget to check out our curated page at kickstarter.com/Gamerati. We are also on YouTube at youtube.com/Gamerati.
All right, Joey, I guess I'll see you again next week.
I will miss your terrible puns until then.
Dead jokes.
Yes.